What's up, folks? We are back with another one of our little impromptu, informal reviews. This time for the Taylor Sheridan directed Angelina Jolie starring Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is currently streaming on HBO Max, our corporate sponsor. Thank you, HBO Max, for giving us $50 million an episode. We're very, very lucky. How are you doing, Zach?
Yeah.
Zach, there was
I,
not nearly enough enthusiasm for $50 million. I would like jumping up and down if you get $50 million.
woohoo. Yeah. I did have a big smile on my face. At least look at this sincere smile. I just can only suck up so much energy in my voice right now. I'm in the middle of the Wisconsin Film Festival. And I'm trying to watch 30 movies. I'm gonna get nowhere near it. I've only 3 days in. I'm only at five and a half. Um, but it's still it's hard. I'm feeling a little drained this quick into it. Maybe I don't like movies. This is what I think about every like time I watch a lot of movies in 1 week. It's like maybe these aren't good as a
I ha-
cultural
I
touchstone.
I have noticed that when you try to watch a ton of movies at once, any movie that's like disappointing really drains you in a way it doesn't if you're watching like one movie every other day.
Yeah.
Like if you watch like six movies and there's one bad one in there, you really need to hit on all six of those to feel good about continuing that streak.
No, you just they're all good. It just becomes like all mixed into one thing in a way. Your mind just kind of
Yeah, it's a
falls into mush.
real mind numbingness. You're just like everything becomes a three
Yeah.
and a half star.
Let's see. I'm aiming
um,
for 25 movies in the next 4 days. Let's go for it.
let's do it. Um, So we're here to review this new film, and we're going to do a quick non-spoiler section and then jump into spoilers after that. So let's do a quick non-spoiler section for anyone who has not seen it yet and is trying to figure out if this is worth
Did you
watching. I will.
say the name of the movie?
Yes, I said it right at the beginning. I said the Taylor Sheridan directed
Okay.
Angelina Jolie starring Those Who Wish Me Dead, currently streaming on HBO Max. Did you not remember this
Hmm.
whole bit? Um,
No, I don't think I was
I
here.
will go. I will go first because I think I'm a bigger Taylor Sheridan fan of the two of us.
Yes.
This is really meh. I think the biggest problem is with his previous work, there is always a point. There's something to say. Sicario, he's talking about immigration. Hell or High Water, he's talking about, the economy and banks and all these different stuff. And in Wind River, he's talking about violence against Native American women. There's a point to all these movies, and that just doesn't exist in this film. It just kind of happens, and you get to the end of this movie, and when you get to the end of most Taylor Sheridan movies, you're like, you feel really psyched up because you just watched something awesome. And when you get into this, you really have a ton of questions that are not answered by the film. It feels like half a movie. It feels like they're trying to set up for a sequel, but I don't think there's a sequel to this film. So a lot of the choices they made are a little awkward. Also, I don't like Angelina Jolie in this movie. She looks real weird. So we'll get into this more in a second, but
Yeah.
it just does not work for me. Zach, non-spoiler thoughts for the audience.
I think that the idea of Taylor Sheridan started off with like, what if I make like this kind of 90s thriller, which is I think essentially what it is. But like the main antagonist can be fire. Like there's still crime stuff happening, but the all the time the stakes are going to be set by this oncoming forest fire, which is like playing into a lot of our tragic climate today. And then he just kind of like forgot what to do with the fire. Like the fire is not used to the potential that it can be. It's just merely a backdrop and used for the last 5 minutes in the climax. But otherwise, he's not able to create the tension that I think seems like should have been set up by having this as your idea. And yeah, we said we're gonna get to Angelina Jolie. I don't think it's her fault. I think it is weird casting and a character that he does not care about or really have a point to the story. Otherwise, it's not really her story, but they place her as the main figure and as the hero and add this really like lifetimey kind of drama to her to make us have something to care about. When really, the drama doesn't mean anything. These characters' tragic backstories don't matter. Really, just want to watch like people be hunted down by assassins while there's a big forest fire going on. That then you just forgot that that could be thrilling enough. I don't know. So it was very underwhelming. It's the definition of a meh movie. It's like fine watching, but there's nothing to really enjoy or engage yourself with.
Yeah, it's very unfocused. We're going to switch over to the spoiler section. So anyone who has not seen the film yet and does want to see it, does not want to hear us talk in detail about the movie, hop right off right now, and then come back later. Let's talk about Angelina Jolie, who is this movie is sort of sold as the Angelina Jolie starring film. I think she is a really missed cast in this film.
Yeah,
Angelina Jolie is like got a bit of a ethereal quality to her, a little bit mystical, a little bit magical that does not work for the firefighter. Like there are scenes in this movie that legitimately look like what would happen if you did a porn parody of a firefighter. And you're like, this person is way too attractive to be a firefighter. Like they couldn't get anything better. Like there's a lot. It just doesn't click. You're constantly questioning why she's there. She just constantly seems out of place with everybody else who's around her. Like if you're gonna have a female firefighter, then she should get grimy and dirty and messy like all the guys. But almost all the scenes with Angelina, it feels like she's just had her makeup done perfectly. Like there's a weird like cleaned up quality to this person who is living in a situation where they would not be cleaned up and like presentable all the time.
it is real weird and noticeable right away. You see her, the first thing you see her in is at this like celebration for some of the other firefighters, and she's just like hanging out with the boys, and they're like being rowdy and saying crude jokes and doing wild stunts and going crazy. And it's just like she would never be here in a million years. She stands out so much, saying amongst these like bearded Montana men. I don't, I, you know, there's many things that you can buy Angelina Jolie as like a Montana Westerner, that kind of person. She would never live there. No one looks like her that lives there or acts like her and lives there. And the demeanor she's trying to put on, the like kind of rough and rowdy, can hang out the boys demeanor, seems so artificial, and she just can't quite put it off. And they also, the way they deal with that character by introducing her as this kind of wild card and someone that's maybe being more chaotic with her actions based on her trauma, gets completely forgotten for the next 90 minutes. They like don't bring that side. It's like only the trauma is all that defines the character the rest of the movie.
So
um
lazy.
and her actions, when that kind of wild side that could be like effective in how she deals with the situation, that like kind of brave go for anything, is not used ever again.
It's the trauma is so lazy. We're introduced to this idea that she had kids and they perished in a fire, and it's just this really stupid trope of her like looking off into the distance and seeing them among the flames. And it's so lazy and like forced, and it's like we don't care. Like why are you trying to introduce us to this character's trauma before we even met the character? Like we don't have any connection to the character or really understand who the character is, and you're trying to define her so much by this trauma, and it just makes for a really uninteresting character throughout the film. You're just like, I don't know. I find her really boring. I mean, I feel like I'll find a lot of characters in this really boring, but she is just really boring throughout the film. It's like, okay, we get it. You're trying to be really tough. Everything seems fake, and then a lot of the stuff just seems forced. It's a really poorly put together character.
Because she's boring, because she's just incidental to the plot. Like she doesn't matter to what is happening with the boy or with the assassin. She just like happens to be there and happens to be able to protect him in the last second. But she's just like a found
She's a
protector,
vessel. She's a vessel.
and she's a vessel, and yeah, and plays nothing more than it. It's not her story at all. The only part is the flashbacks of her, wanting to redeem herself for when she lost did save a group of kids in the fire, which is honestly like the funniest shot in the movie.
It's
These
her
kids
kids.
running. It's her kids. I thought it was
Yeah,
just other kids.
I'm pretty sure it's her
What
kids.
is? There's music playing behind me. I think "Woman in the Window" started playing on my tablet again in the middle of this. This is a sign.
Okay,
Out
no,
of nowhere.
it's just three kids, which is bizarre because
It's
it does
three
not.
random kids running through the woods out of nowhere that she didn't know were there, and just like, "Wow, help
It's
me!" And they're
really goofy.
definitely like
It's super
extras. They're
goofy.
just like the producers' kids they threw in there. And it's like kind of slow mode for the drama at the moment. It's so poorly shot. Taylor Sheridan's that director, and this is like a scene that kind of It shows that he doesn't really have like any kind of artful touch, unable to do this, and it's because it's supposed to be tragic and devastating, and it's just so silly. And then that's just they flash back to it so much, so we can. That's the only way they can give us any motivation. The character's like, yeah, but she like needs to redeem herself from these kids, and that's like that's the all there is to this character, and that moment wasn't made like moving enough or intense enough for us to care.
Well, we're also never given a particular reason why this character feels guilt about these three kids. Like,
No,
did
because
she
they
do?
cut off. They should have showed us watch them burn. You should have saw
No,
them
no, no, no,
shrivel
no,
up.
no. I don't need that. I need to understand
No,
what
I think
she did wrong in the scenario that caused these kids. Like,
she did nothing wrong,
why did she
and they make
internalize
that
so
known.
much guilt of this scenario? Like, that's something we're just never given. Like, why did she take what is ostensibly just kids being in the bad situation and take that and just like internalize that as all this guilt? Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, the movie never really takes a second to try to explain any of the choices she makes, any of the thoughts she has. And it's so bizarre that she's the main character because they really just, you know, completely, throw her around.
Yeah, I think my treasure. So you need to keep talking about
I will keep talking. I
the
got this.
movie for the next 5 minutes.
So then let's go back to the movie starts off. There's Jake Weber plays Owen Casterly. He's a forensic accountant, and he finds some piece of information that makes him a threat, and then he goes on the run with his son. At the same time, we see Nicholas Hoult and Aidan Gillen playing assassins. They go on a rampage, go blow up the house of the DA from Miami. Now, I don't understand. This is where the biggest problem of the movie comes in. There's never an explanation for what the DA found, what the forensic accountant found, why it was important, why it happened in Florida and caused people to chase them to Montana, why they got chased all the way to Montana, what information they have. There's never an indication given to this. This just happens. They blow up this house. Owen Casterly goes on the run. He gets attacked with his son by the assassins played by Holt and Aidan Gillen. They kill him. His son runs off. He ends up with Angelina Jolie. They have to keep going. They go after Angelina Jolie by trying to go after John Bernthal plays like the sheriff of the town. They try to go after him and his pregnant wife, who the pregnant wife maybe the best character in the entire movie. She's by far the most badass.
I think both of them are. We can talk about that once you finish with that.
Oh, they're by far the most interesting part of the film. The problem is we get to the end of this movie. There's like an incidental conversation where Aidan Gillen has a conversation with Tyler Perry. It's sort of insinuated that Tyler Perry is somebody related to the government and says some kind of, this is like maybe they're trying to cover up a government secret they almost got out. We get to the end of the film and they never tell us what happens. They never tell us what the piece of information is, why it's important, who's going after them. They never give us any information. It's the biggest letdown of the film. You get to the end and you're just sitting there going, what? How on earth did you not answer any of these questions? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. How did you write an entire screenplay and not answer any of the pieces of information your audience cares about? We don't care about Angelina Jolie. We don't care about like 19 things that happen in this film. The one thing we need to know is why these two guys, what was the piece of information that caused two assassins to chase them from Florida to Montana? That is the most insane thing that they never answer this question. It is mind-numbing to me that they don't ever answer that question.
I feel like he thought everything with them was like too cool or thrilling that it didn't need context. He could just like show and not tell. But your mind is wondering the whole time, why are they taking this so like severely? This is like the sloppiest assassin job that has ever been done. And there's like no strategic logic to anything they do. And at one point it's like, I'm just gonna shoot everyone we see. And I was like, that sounds like a great idea. You're definitely not gonna get caught and get away with this. Just shoot every person in town. They're like 40 bodies in, and yet they're somehow still able to keep going. It's just like real, just chaotic, unrealistic bullshit. And then you bring, Tyler Perry, how Tyler Perry get to this place of just always seeming like stunt casting, just like weird stunt casting that has no reason to be there, especially when he just delivers like 10 lines that once again we don't have the context to really even make sense of the time of that moment to make that moment work.
Absolutely no idea what he's doing.
Because we have no idea of why this is such a severe thing. Why is the assassins willing to go through anything they can to get this person. It seems like they just give up, especially just like killing the boy who did like who believes that he's actually just a chance that he might have like passed the paperwork and stuff, which is what happened. But like that's all contrived. So why there's no reason for them to follow the boy. They would just let him go. He's also like in the woods.
They're so sloppy. They kill a bunch of people. They start a massive forest fire as a distraction. Like they're
Yes.
just everything is such an it's just such an extreme. And then you're waiting for the end of the movie where it's like, oh, information you covered is like some massive government. Well, also like that's a really stupid setup for a movie that is supposed to be a standalone. Like, why would you create a piece of information that is so valuable and so important and so huge that you would legitimately need like a 4-hour movie or a sequel to pay it off? Like, it's such a stupid, stupid, stupid choice for this movie to make that like the beginning set off moment, because it's something that you don't answer, and like you probably could never answer because the information would just be too large. It would be too impactful and too huge for your audience that they would have so many other questions. It's just a really weirdly put together movie. You know, it's so frustrating too, because if you go back to his last movie he directed, his first movie directed, Wind River, the instigating act of Wind River is the disappearance of one Native American woman off a reservation. One woman disappears and ends up hurt, and they send out investigators to look around and try to find her. That's a great starting point for a film because it's small enough that you could finish and complete that circle, but also impactful enough that you understand why investigators are there. But like, what is the piece of information in this film? Is it a giant government conspiracy they uncovered? Did they find some massive, fraud? Like, this information had to.
I think it was just fraud because he was just like an accountant. He just like uncovered fraud.
Right, but fraud to the level that they were to hunt this guy. They're going to blow up a DA's office
of Montana.
They also blew up the DA, the entire DA's house. Like, they were not going for subtlety. They were not trying to make this disappear. They were trying to get rid of anyone who had any possible knowledge of this, to the point where they were just going to fucking carpet bomb it to the extreme. It's such a weird choice. It's so frustrating. This movie was so frustrating. Like, it is really mad, but it's also really frustrating when you get to the end of it and realize that you're just never going to get answers to all these questions that they needed to answer for this film to function.
Here's my biggest question I had the whole time, because I read this before I watched the movie. So this is either IMDb's fault or the movie's fault. The in IMDb plot summary, they're like one sentence. They say the murder witness finds himself pursued by twin assassins. Are they supposed to be twins, or are they just like twin as in like a pair? Are they twins and they're 30 years apart in age somehow, or like 10, probably 15 years in real life?
They are listed on. They're listed on Wikipedia as Patrick and Jack Blackwell.
They could be brothers. There's no way these two guys are twins.
We're gonna look this up for a second. Aidan Gillen. So let's do a little fun. Aidan Gillen was born in 1968. He's 53 years old and he's Irish. Nicholas Hoult,
21 years.
Was born in 1989. He's 31 years old and he's English. So the Irish and English, you can kind of fit it. But yeah, they're literally.
There's no way to make them seem like twins either. They look aged like 20 years apart.
Aidan Gillen could be Nicholas Holt's dad.
Yes.
That makes more sense.
If he had that and then they cast it, they're like, let's get rid of calling them twins. IMDb missed the memo to take the twin thing off the synopsis.
I would love to
find out really. I think he does call them brother once in the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
I do not believe they use the term brother. I think they may use the term brother. Like some of you and your brother. Yeah, this movie is real. This is almost like, I'll be honest, this is like the most disappointing one we've covered so far. Because even at the best, some of the other ones we knew was just going to be like a fun, goofy action film. I legitimately was really excited for this one. I thought this was had a really
somewhere. It's
so shallow,
kind of thriller 90s plot, but it uncovers something more rich about community that's been underexplored, and it has
a point.
ideas to it. This one has no ideas.
and it has a real point. Like, talking about violence against Native American women is like a legitimate, real problem that exists in the world. And so covering it in your film is not only just like it makes for a good story, but it's also just important to talk about. And this film is just nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to watch an assassin movie, you watch Wind River. If you want to watch a firefighters movie, you watch Only the Brave. Like, there's just better versions of every component of this film. It's
What assassin is there in Wind River? I do not remember this.
Well, there's not assassins, but the reason somebody ends
If
up
you're
dead
gonna
is
watch this like American West thriller like this is, which is what
or you
he's
could, I
supposed to
don't
be
know,
specializing
you
in,
could watch
but he
No
like
Country for No Country for Old Men or something. It's just better versions of
yeah.
this.
He also just like doesn't know how to use the Western landscape. That's kind of became his forte as a writer and filmmaker. That I don't think it's like expressed as sincerely as it has been in other films. Like this does not show that he really cares about the West like his other films do, or has any affection for it.
I'm very confused why firefighters are in this movie at all.
Yeah,
Like
they're of the moment.
but honest question: could you cut Angelina Jolie completely out of this movie and lose nothing? That
Yes,
entire
absolutely.
plot line,
It would be better.
yes,
It would be better because
it would be
they
more
would be able to
focused.
focus more on the people that actually have to do with the plot, which is the kid. And even though not as connected to the plot is the couple that we said earlier, but they still have enough connection to those characters. And they build up that like they trained him in survival school, and he's the sheriff of the
Right.
town. He has more of a role in what is happening around him. That it makes more sense for that pair to be the heroes, especially if you establish the survival school aspect in the beginning of the film. But she is so disconnected to everything happening in this plot for 50 minutes. She has no connection to the characters, no connection to the assassins. And then they just say, but you're going to be part of this.
Well, John Bernthal is like the classic
Yeah,
character in a movie like this.
yeah.
He is the one who's supposed to be the protector. He's the law enforcement officer. He's the person who knows the dad. Like, he's the one who should have found the kid and been his protector. That's a way more interesting story. Now, the wife,
It, it,
6 month pregnant, shooting at people with a gun.
yeah.
I mean,
And
respect.
having that, just the pregnancy aspect of it is just like stakes that's easier for understanding. It's not as overblown as her not being able to
Yeah.
save kids. It doesn't need to be that intense and tragic. I think us knowing that they're trying to save this kid while also, save their own child within her
Well,
is enough for us to be involved with.
it makes all the fight scenes have like an extra level of tension because
Yeah.
you're just so worried that she's going to get tripped and fall on her stomach or bump into like you're just so worried about anything happening to her that could potentially imperil the life of the child that's inside her. But like it's such a quick, easy way to like ratchet the tension up in that scene. Angelina just, I mean, okay, I'm gonna bring up another question that like is a little bit outside the film. Is Angelina Jolie good anymore? Like, is she a good actress?
I do think she's kind of fine in this movie with what she's doing. She just has nothing to do. She's just there to look like miserable and tough. They have no um you know details of the kid. There's no characterization done in the script. She gives it the best she can to her performance. I don't think she's horrible. I think you put anyone in this role and it's going to be just as bland and nothing of a part.
No, but this is my larger point is that I don't think she's necessarily awful. I
Yeah.
do think there's a legitimate point to be made that Angelina Jolie has not acted much recently and may not be very good anymore. Because if you look at her career recently, her career is Eternals coming later this year, so we'll see. This movie where she's at best very meh and very miscast.
She's
She
been
did
much
a,
more focused on her own film. She's directed what 3 movies at this point.
has she?
She's raised in a big family. Yeah.
She was a voice in The One and Only Island. She was in something called Come Away, which I've never heard of. She was in 2 Maleficent movies. She was in 3 Kung Fu Panda movies. She was in something called By the Sea that she directed. Uh, like the last movie that's like her for as an actress is like The
Oh,
Tourist
she
and
directed By the
Salt and
Sea? That's that disaster Brad Pitt when I knew she directed. She actually directed 4 movies. So
yeah.
that was
She's
the movie like
technically
about
directed.
the falling apart of their marriage.
She's directed 5 movies technically.
Are you counting the Coldplay music video?
Is that a place in time?
Oh, there's a no. That's okay. There's a documentary, I guess. Yeah.
A place
Okay.
in time in the land of blood and honey, unbroken by the sea. First they killed my father. Which, by the way, first they not a very good directing career either, if we're being honest.
So I think that's just where her attention has been. That's why she's not in so much movies, as well as
Well,
humanitarian efforts or her family.
it's not even that
I just
she's
don't
not
think.
in as much movies. It's like if you just look at her career, it's just not like this is at one point with somebody who was like legitimately considered a top actress, Oscar contender. She just like I mean it was partially she's kind of stepped away from all that. Hills just doesn't really have anything impressive on her career in like the last 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Really weird movie. I don't know why they. I mean, it feels weird that they sold on her. She's really miscast. Just I have it's a lot of questions. I don't feel like we have anything else to say. Do you have anything else? We kind of said it all.
No, but I think this is a real career dampener. Like it's going to be hard to get excited about Taylor Sheridan movie after this because,
I know.
and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can have a bad one, but you still have hold up hopes. But I think this isn't. This is like bad without ambition. If there was like an actual
It's
point of view
uninteresting.
and view, it makes me think that we overvalued him as someone with something to say.
Or he got lucky with some of the other ones. Yeah, because like
Yeah,
he does not. There are not. He's not taking any swings in this movie. There are not a lot of choices. He's just like
yeah,
forgetting to include like basic important parts of a
yeah.
film in his
It's just,
movie, and that's
I mean, his first two notable movies have like really strong directors with a real like artistic touch. Between Hell or High Water and Sicario. So maybe he just needs to keep working with talented directors and pass the scripts along. Almost like an Aaron Sorkin kind of thing. It's okay to not be a writer director. You can just be a writer and
I
be
mean,
known
Wind
for that.
River is really good, so I don't know if I want
And
him
I
to
know
go
that's the
through.
one I'm thinking maybe is luck.
Well, I think honestly, I think the biggest thing this movie misses, and we talked about this earlier, is just it does not have a point of view. It does not have a focus. It doesn't have a message. And I think if he was to go back and make another movie that had a message, I would be interested. The problem with this movie is that it just has nothing to say. It's very uninteresting. It's very boring and sort of. Um, that being said, thank you everyone for watching our review of Those Who Wish Me Dead. Um, I hope maybe you had a different opinion. If you have a difference of opinion, if you disagree with us, if you agree with us, why don't you drop us a like? Show us a comment. Send us a shot on Twitter. Look at our letterboxes. Probably have reviews on there. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from anyone who has a different take on this film. There are some people who are coming out of it quite positive. I think a lot of people more in our range. I believe the Rotten Tomatoes average review is like a 5.7, which feels pretty accurate for where this film is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be back with more regularly scheduled content. Enjoy the reviews, enjoy the regular podcasts, and we'll see you another day. Peace
I
out.
love you.